Ireland in the 80s, there was some weird policy about boys got extra maths and girls like went and did sewing. And I'm not that old. And I remember being like really annoyed about that. Actually, my mom went to the school and was like, absolutely not. Like my daughter has to be allowed to do this.
Erica here, popping in to say a huge thank you because we are number one in the UK careers podcast chart on Apple. So thank you so very much. It's really amazing to know that you're out there, that you're listening to this and that it's valuable. Please do keep sending in your questions, your ideas, your career conundrums, your feedback, and do share the podcast with anyone you think might benefit from it. Thanks once again.
You'll spend 80,000 hours at work. You're here because you want those hours to count. Hi, I'm Zoe Schofield.
And I'm Erica Sosner. A warm welcome to the Career Equation podcast. On this podcast, we take time out from our award-winning careers consultancy to share a game-changing formula to help you solve the sum of your life.
Each week, we and our guests use the Career Equation to explore their story so far and help them unlock the secrets of a fulfilling career.
Very warm welcome, everyone, to the Career Equation podcast. And today I'm delighted to be here with Niamh O'Connell. With over 20 years of expertise in talent acquisition, leadership development, employee engagement, she has a fantastic track record delivering organizational transformation and enhancing the employee experience. At the Flutter Entertainment Group, she's been successfully implementing employee engagement strategies, developed a bespoke careers framework that we're going to hear more about, and developed a leadership development methodology that supports leaders at all ages and stages. So I'm very excited to drill into both her career and the exciting opportunities and what's going on at Flutter. So a very warm welcome to you, Niamh. I looked at your bio and some of the pre-conversations we had, and what became clear to me was this is a person who absolutely loves the process of learning and discovery, that intellectual curiosity is a core part of what fuels and motivates you. And I wondered if you have a sense of pinpointing where that began for you in your life.
I suppose thinking back, my dad used to work in education. So he was a teacher, and I have a really strong memory of doing maths at home. Just a little bit of an odd one, but Ireland in the 80s, there was some weird policy about boys got extra maths and girls like went and did sewing. And I'm not that old. And I remember being like really annoyed about that. And actually my mom went to the school and was like, absolutely not. Like my daughter has to be allowed to do this. I don't think I knew it was an intellectual curiosity. And certainly in school, I would have always seen myself as like bright or clever, but actually it was only when I went to college that I realized like I had a good memory. So I was constantly like remembering things. So it was probably later into college and then into my early career where I found subjects that I just loved, like really loved, and then would have to read more and really delve into them.
I love hearing about those early experiences and how formative they are. And I think it's so interesting one thing is the characteristic to have the curiosity to engage with something and explore it and to know how to absorb that information in the best way for you. And the other is about subject matter. You know, you can have that capability, the skill, but the passion's got to be there for it to align in the equation, right? You've also got to find the thing that you enjoy. And then when those two things combine, there's nothing more pleasurable than learning. So I think that's really interesting to hear a little bit about your journey towards discovering the things that really light your fire. And when we think about that timeline, are there any kind of key pivotal moments that stand out in your career where you go, that was the torch of learning and direction just igniting itself?
So definitely when I think about like a really big pivotal moment, it's definitely after college. And so I was just following the crowd. Like people were from my class were going into e-consultancy or accountancy or like lots of different things. And so I said, okay, I'll do accountancy, maybe go to one of the big fours. That seemed like a great opportunity and great career. And I went through with this and you know, it didn't dawn on me, like I hadn't picked accountancy in school. I hadn't really chosen accountancy in college. Like I know passion for this, but it was kind of what everyone did. And I did those and got offered 4 out of 5 that I had applied to. Started in one and just realized, no, this is not for me. Like, just not that interested in this. And I think me as a person, like my whole kind of personality, my energy levels, everything. And it's a great career. Like, it is an absolutely great career. And I met amazing people when I was working there. But I suppose having had the struggle in college, really feeling maybe that it wasn't totally right for me, I ended up leaving. And I know it took me, and it was maybe, I was only 4 months in and I decided to leave. And lots of people were like, you're crazy. This is your passport to a great career. But it was there that I started to do all the career coaching. So I got tests done. I did what am I interested in, like all the stuff you do, Erica. But I had that bespoke like conversations with people. And it was through that I remember working with the career coach before I'd handed in my notice. He was like, don't go back in there. You're really not suited to that kind of work. You're much more suited to like education and presenting and things like that. And he was right. And I got a job then in a very small boutique training agency, basically. And then I was delivering courses and designing programs. And I worked with like big corporates. And I also worked in the community as well with people who were long-term unemployed. And I loved it.
Yeah, I really relate to that actually, Niamh, because I chose the civil service fast stream when they came round thinking I won't get in, but it's a really nice long application process. So I don't have to think about it until they say no. And then they kept saying yes. But very soon in, just culturally, I could see that I just wasn't a fit, and the pace and the diplomacy and things I just couldn't find a fit. And very similarly, I then got headhunted by a training consultancy that was working in the kind of D&I and change space. I really felt like I'd found my home. So even though these days I have friends who are ambassadors who stayed in the civil service and had amazing, interesting careers doing loads of interesting policy stuff, I just knew that somehow my shape wasn't made for that. So I really hear and resonate with that. Tell me about other pivotal moments.
After a few years working in that organization, I changed the industry. So I suppose my career has been very much in the sort of learning, talent, sort of people space, but I've done it in a lot of different industries. And I just started to feel a little bit stuck. And then I decided I'll go and talk to a coach. And I was blown away by the experience, loved it so much so. In a very typical me fashion, I decided I'm going to be a coach. And through my training, I had to explore again all the stuff. What are my values? What do I want to be doing? What are my goals in life? And I always had a goal to go to Africa. My aunt was a nun and she spent a really long time in Africa. So eventually I decided, okay, I'm going to take the break, quit my job. And I went off for a year to work in Africa. The work that I did tended to be then with girls who either had been forced to leave school or couldn't afford to be in school. So there was a bit of just general teaching English and stuff, but there was also vocational training. That was amazing, like absolutely brilliant experience. And that was like a key one because I think it did tap into something around sort of development and equality and like really doing something that is helping people to achieve their potential. And I think when I really think about the impact that I hope I have and that I try to have, it is about helping people reach their potential in whatever kind of different ways that might be. And then I came back and did a few more years in Ireland and then got a notion. I love traveling and I wanted to go again. And so decided to take a year. I just decided actually to take a year out with my now husband and we were teaching English. We decided to go to China. Mm-hmm. And then in my year of teaching English, there was a learning team, but their role generally was teaching teachers how to teach English, but they had nothing on like leadership development or like management development or how to lead teams. So I pitched an idea. And so I ended up doing that. And we only intended to stay for a year, but just the opportunities kept coming. And I ended up staying there for 5 years before I came back. And it was when I came back then that I went into Flutter.
Wow, fantastic. I imagine that those perspectives of being in China, being in Africa, were you in a variety of countries?
Yeah, so I was in Ethiopia, Tanzania and Uganda.
Wow, brilliant. Those perspectives must have really informed your global view and what's possible. And I've never lived and worked overseas, so I'm really curious about what it brings to be elsewhere.
Yeah, so really amazing experiences. And so I think like China was a really interesting one just in terms of the very different culture. So I would be quite a direct communicator and I tend to say what I think. And I really needed to work on that in China because it's an indirect communication style and a lot is inferred through the context, and something that was really valuable for me to learn because I just probably had never thought about that there's a different way to communicate in Africa and in China. Like the people that I worked with were from everywhere. And so I really do think that like those different perspectives, it's helpful, right, to work in diverse teams. And I read that a lot, and it says that diverse teams tend to do better, but it's not always comfortable. Sometimes it's that discomfort that is what makes the team perform so well, because you have to slow down. You really have to try and understand that other perspective. So I think for me, that was just a real eye-opener. And then, look, understanding how privileged and lucky I was to have all the opportunities that I'd had to go to good school, went to a great university, all the support. I was fortunate enough that I could have a role and then decide, no, that's not for me. And I had the time and the space and the resources to be able to change.
It does sound incredible. And as you say, really highlights that access to education for women is still a key agenda. And to hark back to your going off to sewing class instead of maths just a couple of decades ago, we've still got plenty of distance to travel in terms of women being able to access their full potential in education. So starter for 10 for those new to it. Can you tell us a little bit about Flutter Entertainment and what it is that you do?
Flutter is probably the largest online gaming and betting operator in the world. We have about 27,000 people now, and mainly see ourselves as a kind of an entertainment company as well as very tech-led. I am the talent director for PokerStars and Flutter International. And so within that, then I'm responsible for really end-to-end talent, everything from kind of recruitment through to learning and development, performance management, talent succession planning, culture engagement, all the fun stuff, I like to say, in HR, all that, and the strategic stuff, the stuff that we think about that will really make this a great place to work. So I've been doing that now since 2022. So I've had several roles at Flutter. So I came in as a head of learning and development in Paddy Power and then PPB, and then I moved across then into people experience and into talent.
And what's your favourite bit? You said, all the fun stuff, but do you have a kind of sweet spot where you really love to play the most?
Yeah. So just coming back to something I said earlier, like it is really about the kind of helping people to reach their potential. But I suppose in work, I would say helping people to reach their potential, but also businesses to reach their potential. So I think the bit that I love and the thing that I think Flutter offers a lot of is just it's constantly changing, right? So there's no 2 days that are the same. So I suppose one of the things that I'm really interested in is just understanding what are those kind of business problems we're trying to solve, and then what are the initiatives that kind of help to support those. The stuff that I love is where we look at data and we find something that is, why is that the case? What's going on there? Do we have a kind of a challenge there? And then designing then a solution that's very bespoke to our context.
That's niche problem solving. Sounds like there's lots of stories to tell underneath it. Let's hear a little bit about your populations. Who are they? What are the kind of job families? And is there anything you'd describe that's particular about the culture or the temperament of folks at Flutter?
The part of the business that I look after is very professional, early careers, mid to senior careers, and all across the world. Again, everybody's an individual, but things that I see that are the people who are really successful and love working at Flutter tend to be very, they like the pace, they like the variety, quite goal-oriented, a bias to action, I would say. Curious is another one that came up, and definitely customer-obsessed. How do we delight our customer? How do we keep our customers safe?
Yeah, it's great to have a sense of the kind of cultural disposition, personality disposition that works well in an organisation. I think both for supporting new individuals to find a fit about who gets on around here and where you're going to feel like comfortable and that the environment really suits you, but also to have a sense of that shared identity. And you actually have, together with your colleagues, coined a phrase for the kind of archetypal, like key personality that you're working with.
Yeah, I definitely won't take the credit for this. It's a colleague that I work with. Her name is Tricia Frayne, and she has done quite a bit of research. And so she was able to categorize people into different personas. And one persona that came through, and its most predominant one, is this idea of skill seekers. So what it means really is that the people are very motivated. They want to progress, so they want to develop their skills. They don't always have this clear career path in mind, but they need to feel like I'm developing in my role, I'm acquiring new skills, I'm getting better, I'm improving.
I love this definition of skills seekers.
Getting underneath the skin of the key aspirations and drivers of your employees is so important as a learning expert. If you're currently in-house, what research have you done to understand the career motivations and the desires of your key audiences? Do they share traits or characteristics in common? Is there almost an archetype for the kind of person who does well in your ecosystem? Knowing who they are and what they need can really help you to maximize the impact of your most important resource, your people.
And I think for us, then that has really helped us to think a little bit about how do we provide these development opportunities. I think that's been a bit of a shift in terms of where we place resources and how we sort of design interventions.
It's so crucial, isn't it, that people feel like they are progressing, they are growing. And so I'm curious about how you manage to shift that mindset, because I think that's a really common conundrum that organizations that we work with speak to. What kind of things made the difference in shifting mindset?
So one was we had data that said we ask questions around engagement. And one of the questions is, I can see a path to advance my career at Flutter. So we had data that was saying that was scoring lower than our other drivers of growth and our other drivers of engagement. So it wasn't super low, but it was lower than the other. So that was one thing. And then the other thing that I kept seeing and kept being asked to support was helping people to develop competency frameworks. And I was really curious about why are we doing this? Why do we constantly want to develop competency frameworks? But actually, when we started to have conversations about that, the problem that we were trying to solve there was to give people clarity about what was needed at various levels so that they could start to think about moving to the next level. So those two things then got us then thinking about how do we then create a kind of a capability-based approach to career development. So it needed to feel personalized, it needed to be scalable, it needed to be something that really you could use regardless of the part of the business that you were in. From there, then we ended up then thinking about, okay, there's three elements to that. So one is your resources. So what resources do you need yourself to be proactive about your career development? And as well, what resources do your managers need? And then the other two bits, so we decided then to look at accelerators. And so when we talked about accelerators, what we meant was, who are the people in the business who have knowledge that they could share? So who are our subject matter experts who, if we provided them with some training, so our L&D team are experts at facilitation and training, can we teach them how to deliver a great course, but then they can start to share their knowledge. So therefore, we've a greater reach. People can close those skills gaps at a point of need. And then the third piece was experiential learning. So how do we then help people to get the experiences that they could need in order to close those skills gaps? So if we think about how they want to be, I'm a learning facilitator, I want to be a director of learning, what are some of the experiences that you would need to have under your belt before you could really be considered for that role? And that sort of pushed us down this idea of like flexible work, like gig economy. We've done stuff around like global mobility as well. So like actually people moving around to different parts of the business. But the second two were more challenging, actually. So just coming back to your question about the mindset shift, while we were building some of the technical pieces that we needed for the second bit, and I wouldn't say that we're there yet, but we are trucking away at it, we did spend quite a lot of time on those resources. And really what I was really thinking about, how do I, as an individual, what are the things I need to know? What am I passionate about? Where do I want to go? What are my skills? Who could I lean on? What mentors could I have? What courses do I need to do? How do I sustain my success? So really helping them to do that. And that led us on then to doing things like career clinics where people could come and literally be given a day of training and support through coaches that you've met, Erica, and they're very familiar with your framework around helping them to plan that, as well as courses for managers so that managers could have better conversations with their people. And actually we have seen a significant jump. So I think when we started with career pathing score in NPS, it was 11 and now it's 19. And that's over a year, which is, it's a significant growth in terms of how much we would expect our other drivers to move. So definitely people are feeling more guided. So everything is moving now, but I think, the mindset shift, it is quite a leap to start to get people to really understand that nobody is going to take your career as seriously as you do. There's so much that you are in control of in terms of how you can think about planning for your career and really waiting for that role to come up and to be advertised, that's not a good strategy. So getting out ahead of that and really, I know I want to work there. Okay, so connect with the person. Go and see if you can do a secondment over there. Go and shadow someone for a day. Like really helping people to be much more proactive about that. I think that's the shift now that is required. I think if you want to be successful in this new world of work, which is a bit more fragmented, it's more flat. People are going to make a squiggly career. That's a real thing now. So I think helping people to navigate the squiggle, I suppose, is kind of where we put our attention.
Because I think for so many of our listeners and our clients, competency frameworks and career paths to some extent become a rod for your own back. As you said, to some extent, they're very static. And so then it takes a lot of work, because the world of work is changing all the time, to every 6 months review them and go, is this still true? Is this still relevant? Is this still the skills that we need? Is this still the structure and even the roles that we want? And as we move to greater and greater sort of personalization and customization, both in terms of developing the role and responding to the business need, how do we give enough structure for people to feel clear and supported, but also that it's dynamic and fluid enough that it can meet the business and environmental changes as they come? And I love this sort of three-pronged path then of how do we give people the resources and the information and the support that they need? How do we build the capacity of those key touch point folk within the business to be an accelerator of internal progression, of a mindset shift, of the tools that we need? And then how do we generate and help people to think of experiential as a key element of our learning strategy, and much more within their control and within their gifts, depending on who they are and where they are, than they perhaps might have realized. They don't just have to wait for the next hypo program to come about to accelerate their exposure towards where they want to go. And I'm guessing that still making the time and having the confidence to be proactive is still tricky, because that's what talents say to us when they come on our group programs is, it's just been great to just have 2 or 3 hours to just think about where I want to go. So tell us a little bit more about how you've supported people to carve out that time, both in terms of what you've put in place, but also in your encouragements to them or any touch points you put in that help them to do a bit more of that proactive work for themselves.
A couple of things. So one, we have a concept that we use in our organization called Power Hours. And effectively what that is, we allow people to take up to 4 hours a month to work on their own development. So they can work on whatever that is. And we also provide a very generous external learning fund as well. So we provide a lot of internal stuff, but if it's something very technical or something very bespoke that they need, then there's this fund that they can go and they can take a course and be able to do that. Because look, as a business, I think we need people to continuously develop their skills. We know that the rate of skills change is really fast. We know that the half-life of degree knowledge is shrinking every year, right? So I think by companies generally like just signaling that, yes, it's okay, we expect you to do development, that is part of your work. The other thing I'd say then is just really linking in conversations around career then into the regular touch points. So in our mid-year and our end-of-year cycle, we've built in then kind of career development questions. So again, like employees should be having a career conversation with their line manager at least twice a year. Now, we don't say you only have to do it twice a year, but there's an expectation that you're having some sort of conversation. And again, just building that into a natural kind of cycle that's already in place then makes it feel complementary then to that conversation as opposed to something separate that I need to think about. But one answer, it's probably multi-pronged. In order to do the job that you will want to do and we will need you to do next year and in 5 years' time, you're going to need to keep building on your skills.
As an individual, if you're worried right now about AI taking over, the best way to sidestep it is to continue to invest and focus on your learning and growth. What are the additional capacities and skill sets that are going to be necessary to do your job well, either better than or alongside AI? How can some of your time and energy be set aside every week to learn something new? And remember, it doesn't have to be formal training. It could be a massive online course, a podcast, a TED Talk, a book, an article, a blog, a conversation you have, a job shadow, maybe a trial session of something. Use everything to learn, grow, and evolve your capability. You just might surprise yourself.
So I think really helping people to understand that it's not a nice to have. It's quite important. Like in our line of work, that we are continually sharpening the saw and really keeping on top of our skills, that is really quite important.
There's so much in there that I could point to, but I think what I really take away is that you're creating a learning culture, that learning is absolutely essential for the success and future of the individuals, the business, and the great result and customer experiences. And tell me then, of course, the career equation has had a little kind of dusting over Flutter. I know that we've met some of your talent professionals. They've come on the coaching accreditation. Is there anything particular from the equation that you've taken away to shape your thinking and ideas around this? And what would you share around that?
When we met first and you did the session for us on the career equation, I think the one that really jumped out for me was the environment. I don't know that people pay enough attention to the environment and where they do their best work. And I think it really has quite a big impact on how satisfied you are with your career. So I think that as a lens in terms of just thinking about, okay, what do I love to do? What are my skill sets? That's really important. But if I put you in a company that is very structured, but you love the variety, you're not going to love it there. I think you spell out really well in the equation, and is something that I definitely get people to think about. What are the companies, the teams, the types of people you want? Like, that environment piece is really important.
And I imagine that for lateral moves as well, that's really important, because you will have a bit more of an oversight in the people function about the levels of autonomy or the speed to action or across the business. And that's not going to be consistent across all those different brands, all those different silos, all the acquisitions. Getting a feel for, if you're this kind of person disposed to flat, let's agile and do it all together, versus I like structure and hierarchy, you're probably going to feel more comfortable over here, and also equipping them to be able to know the answer to where do I do my best work, so that they can also own that and drive that and ask the right questions to really find the fit where they can perform. And that's really what environmental fit is all about: performance on an individual basis, an organizational one. There's nothing worse than feeling like a square peg in a round hole, and that's harmful for everybody. So the more that we can pinpoint that, the more we can find those win-wins that make the best use of the amazing talent that we have.
I remember being in a coaching conversation. I had a coach a couple of years ago, and he really helped me to think about this as well from again, environment, but it was like the stage that the business was at. And so what is the stage that you like to work at? And really thinking about, okay, when the business is scaling and growth versus when it's maybe a little bit further on, more maturing, it's a bit more structured, etc. And that was an eye-opener for me, and it ties back to that environment as well. So even thinking about things like that, and again, coming back to the Flutter example, because we do mergers and acquisitions, like you actually have brands at different stages of maturity along different dimensions, but like even in the talent space. So there is opportunities then to find your way into places where there's a great opportunity because of the stage the business is at. A lot of those opportunities get presented then that you can move around. So I think that was something that I, again, probably hadn't paid as much attention to as I'm more tuned into now.
That's so true. I remember that with the Myers-Briggs typology, that there's 4 quadrants and each one has 4 subsections, and the personalities in each of those suit startup, growth, maintenance and closure. And I think that's so interesting that you make that connection between a business that is constantly in kind of dynamic acquisition, scale up. So you're going to have literally scale up, startups, growers, maintainers and closers across your brand, like at the same time within the family. And I can really see how that also then gives people that potential for career longevity, because I might like that beginning stage, whether that beginning stage is as a business or even as a product or as a geo that we don't have a presence here, and I can use my initiation skill within a business that's actually very established. And I think that's a really valuable geography, if you like, for want of a better word, to have for people. Okay, quick fire questions. What's next? What are you most excited about? What's hot for 2025?
We're doing a big focus on internal mobility. So really, we've done our discovery on that now. Really trying to identify why people want to move internally, what the motivations are and what some of the challenges are. And so ready to move into tackling some of that and trying to streamline a lot of our processes.
Great. Okay. What or who has been your biggest professional inspiration, would you say?
I have had a couple of amazing managers, and I think that has been really important for me. At one point in my career, I had a manager who really knew my area. She was a talent director, excellent, really knew her profession. And I think working with her was just amazing in terms of being able to learn from her and absorb that. I have had a manager who is less of a subject matter expert, but she's an amazing leader, and so gets the best out of subject matter experts in her team. And I think working with her, that's been different because she's really had to trust me to come up with the right ideas. And so I think the combination of kind of both of those, and at the points of my career as well, I think was really helpful to have both.
Great. Okay, lovely. And advice for people who want to get into your industry. Where do we find out more? Where do you advertise? What do we need to know?
Yeah, so there's a few places. You can go to the flutter.com website, and there's a career section there, and it'll actually give you information about our different divisions and regions and brands, so you can find out about the different brands and all the opportunities. And then similarly, you can follow PokerStars on LinkedIn, Flutter International and Flutter on LinkedIn, and we do a lot of posts there about some of the stuff that we do. We advertise our roles there on LinkedIn as well, so they would be good places as well.
Okay, wonderful. And what do you think is the most important lesson that you've learned in your career so far?
I think there's been so many things that I have done or that have been put in front of me, and I've gone, oh my God, no, am I the right person? The usual imposter syndrome. And then I find a way. I think my lesson is I can figure it out, or I work with really smart people and they can figure it out and I can be part of that. So I think it's probably a little bit around just knowing that you have the resources to find a way through. And it doesn't always have to be your stuff. Sometimes it is the conversations with the connections, the networking just brings out the result.
Last thing, when we look back at little Niamh at the kitchen table, beavering away at her math stuff and really having a great time, like knowing what you know now as a grown up, what kind of mentoring thought would you give and message back to her about work and life and discovery?
Yeah, I think it would be really find those things that you love and just really immerse yourself in them. There probably was a phase of just, I need to get good grades. And I wasn't maybe enjoying the stuff that I was learning. And just to really go back to that, like where I really enjoyed that, where it was about the learning, where it was about the challenge of doing something new that you hadn't done before and working through it, as opposed to there's a deadline, there's an essay that has to be in, there's marks you have to get in it. And you need that stuff too, but it probably feels a little bit more enjoyable if you're not focused on the results and a little bit more focused on the journey or the process.
That's it. Find the pleasure, find the joy and apply yourself to that. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for taking the time today, and wish you every continued success and look forward to working with you again soon.
Yeah, you too, Erica. Thanks a million.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Career Equation podcast. Stay connected with us on socials for more career insights, behind-the-scenes moments, and updates on upcoming episodes. And if you'd like to work with us, visit the Career Equation website or click the links in the show notes.
Remember, the Career Equation isn't just a podcast, it's a journey towards unlocking your full potential, enjoying your life, and doing remarkable stuff. And don't forget to share your thoughts and feedback with us. Your input shapes the future of our show.
Until next time, keep solving those career equations and pursuing your path to success. This is Erica Sosna
and Zoe Schofield. Signing off.